Hey everyone, I hope you guys are doing well. I've got a bit of a cool video for you today. It is a PSA reveal. This is a somewhat blind reveal, some of the cards I've seen already, because as you may or may not know, PSA now is making offers on cards prior to sending them back. And so I did take a look at the ones that they were making offers on to see if I wanted to accept any of those, which I did not accept any of the offers. There's one I thought was a fair offer. The rest were a little low, and I figured that if I'm selling them, then I could get a little bit more for them, so I didn't bother. That being said, I do have a submission here. This was the vintage special that they were throwing way back in June. I submitted it on June 27th, and today is November 13th. So it had quite a lengthy turnaround on this one. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. I'm gonna move some of these stacks so that I have a little more room. But I think we'll start with the bad news, and we'll go from there. Let's see here. Let me just stack these over here. Okay. So, starting with the ones that did not get holdered, let's have a look and see what they said was not. So first up, we have a 1980 Topps Nolan Ryan. It says miscut. And then I'm not sure what the difference is between miscut and min size. I'll have to measure it against it. If anyone knows like what the difference is between miscut and min size, for why a card would not get holdered. I don't know if it's just on angle or what, but for some reason that one got a miscut. Next up, we've got a 1978 O-Pee-Chee Ken Dryden, which they're saying is min size. And 1970 Topps Al Kaline, min size as well. Interesting. I will put these up next to other versions and see how they compare. In this submission, I did send back some that I had previously got mid-size on, and they evidently did get holdered. One example was this 1967 Topps Hank Aaron. This is the old label, which came back out of one of my earlier submissions. Here's another one, mid-size, and I measured these cards up from previous submissions against others, and they all looked like they were fine. So I kind of wanted to get a second opinion and on those three mid-size, and it looks like all three of them got holdered. So other resubmissions that I did was this was an Al Kaline. It was a 1969 Topps, and it was a PSA 4. It was marketed on eBay. I got a deal on it because there was wax on the front of the card, and I kind of opened it up and cleaned off the wax off the front of it because it's often pretty easy to clean up, and tried to resubmit it. So we'll see what we did with that. And then this is just a KSA label of a Brett Hull rookie O-Pee-Chee, and they gave it an 8.5. So when those cards come up, we'll check them out and see how we compared to the previous gradings. And so let's get into it. And a bunch of these, most of these, I don't know what they are. This is a Wayne Gretzky. Before I get on with this, hold on one second. Let me find my documentation to see how I pre-graded everything. Here we are, and this is card number 250. Sorry, there it is. Okay, so I had pre-graded this as a 6. Main reason being is the off-centered, really on the bottom and top and left, right. The centering on that card is not perfect, but other than that, it's really sharp. It's got really sharp corners, good back, just a sharp card other than the centering. So let's see what it gets. And it gets an 8 miscut. So, I mean, I guess that makes sense. I hate those qualifiers. I know that they typically will either do that or they'll like grade it down to. I don't know if they, I don't think it would be a 6, but it's definitely, yeah, don't like the qualifier, but an 8 is still good for old Gretzky. Next up, we have another 1980. This one is a Tony Esposito, and I had pre-graded this as a 9. Looking at it now, I'm looking at the off-centered up and down. I don't think that that would get that, so it would probably be a 7 at best if it were a 9 otherwise, but everything else on it looks really sharp. Let's check it out, and it gets a 7. So it's probably would otherwise be a 9 if but for the centering. Although the centering isn't that bad on the up-down. I think it's just, yeah, grading is definitely tougher these days, and not sure anybody's really happy with their submissions to PSA. At least I haven't heard of anybody talk about an amazing submission in a long time. Bernie Perrant, what year is this? I think this is 69. No, that's not 69. That's 70, I think. Okay. What card number is it? 78. Okay, yeah, it is 70. I had pre-graded this as a 7. It looks like the top border is a little bit thin, so I'm guessing it's off-centered. Let's see what it gets. It gets a 6, so got a 6 so far on that one. And then there's a lot of these, so I'll try to go a little bit quicker. And then these 1972s, I had bought a huge stack that was probably like that tall off of a seller, and they were all like pristine, pack fresh, like beautiful cards. I went through them and I picked the, only the best ones that I thought were absolutely flawless, no surface issues, perfect centering, nothing. Thought that I could possibly get some 10s on these, even though they're 72s, just because this was the nicest stack of 72s I've ever seen in my life. And we'll see how there's a bunch of those in here. Hoping to get some 10s on some of these great players from the 70s, but let's see. And this one gets a 6. Okay. Not really sure what they see on that, why that's a 6. Centering's good. Corners are sharp. I looked at the surfaces for wax, for just anything, and all of these looked like completely perfect. I don't see why I'm getting a 6 on that. Let's keep going. And here's a Bobby Orr. Now I know this one's not the greatest centering's off with it, but otherwise it's pretty decent. I was guessing on this one. I guessed a 5 on that. That sounds about right. Just because of the centering. Other than that, I mean, the corners are kind of sharp. This one's not quite as sharp as the others, and it gets a 6, so that's decent for that card. And that was kind of just a space filler at this point. Here's a Wade Boggs from 1983 Donruss, and looking at my hockey, I guess this as a 9. The centering looked pretty decent to me, and it looked pretty flawless other than that. Sharp corners, everything about it looked pretty good. Let's see what it gets. It gets a 9, so that got exactly what I thought it would. Here's an O.P.G. Gretzky, which it's card number 1. I had guessed on this one an 8, just due to the thing about these OPGs that also to keep in mind is that the way that they cut a lot of the OPGs in the 70s and 80s, they almost had like a furry edge to them. And I think a lot of the graders don't know how to really grade the furry edged OPGs and tend to grade them down, even though that's how they were cut at the time. But this one I think was about an 8. We'll see what we get. We got a 7 on it. So yeah, and I know Gretzky's get graded harsh, so that's not something that I'm too surprised over. Here's a 1981 Gretzky, and I had pre-graded this as a 7, and I mean it looks pretty good. I think it's just the centering's not perfect, and that's kind of why I dinged it down, and it got an 8, so that's pretty good on that card. Stack. And then another Gretzky. This one's card number 107. I guess this one as a 9. Again, this one has the furry OPG sides, so I'm always kind of curious on the grader whether or not they can, whether or not they're mindful of that. But this one had really good centering, looked good, and I thought it could get a decent grade, and it gets an 8. I believe this is a rookie, Dale Howardchuk. I pre-graded this as a 9. And looking at it, the centering looks pretty good on that card. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't get less than that, but we'll check it out, and it gets a 7. So, yeah, not sure. A lot of these cards look really good to me, and still, I'm just wondering. Okay, and here's a Henry Richard. Where are my pre-grades for those? Okay, here it is. It's 1961 Parkhurst, Henry Richard. I had guessed it would be, I mean, it's got rough corners. Not the best, and these Parkhursts in general are often, they've got really, the surfaces of these to begin with are kind of not textured, but they're kind of rough, that they pick up a lot of grime and stuff, so you have to be really mindful of the surfaces on the old Parkhursts. But I'm guessing it's probably about a 2, and it gets a 2. So, yeah. Here's a Sakic rookie. This one just looked really good to me. Thought it could get there. We'll see if it does. Nothing too much to say about it, just looked good, and it only gets an 8. And I know they grade that card harsh. Here's that Brett Hull that had been previously graded by KSA as an 8.5 near mint. I thought it looked pretty good. I cracked it out. I wanted it to be in a PSA holder, and we'll just see what PSA thinks in comparison to KSA. And KSA gave it a 8.5, and PSA gives it a 6. So, and then next up is 1979 Topps Ozzie Smith, and I know this card has a lot of centering issues. Definitely a tough card to grade. I had guessed it as a 5. Just wanted to get it in a holder, but we'll see what it gets. And it gets a 6. That's pretty good. That's better than I expected, so that's good. Next up is a 1962 Topps Gaylord Perry. I thought this one looked pretty good and had a chance to displace my other one in my collection. So, I mean, centering's not perfect, but it has sharp corners and just looks really nice. Just a really beautiful card other than the centering. And it gets a 6. So that's not too bad. I can't remember what my last one was. I think it's or what my other one is. I think it's a 5. So I think that still might be better. The late Ryan Sandberg. What did I grade this at? I guess this as like a 9. It looks pretty good to me. I think I guessed it as a 9 just because I didn't think they'd give me a 10. Just the cynic in me, but other than that, it looks pretty perfect. It gets an 8. So yeah. Okay, here's both those K lines from 69. So we'll check those out. I don't remember which is which, but I sent in 2 69 K lines. Here's the first of 2. I had guessed one at, I guess I guessed them both at, or the one that I cracked, or that I took the wax off, I guessed that one as a 6, and the other one I guessed is a 5. So let's see, and then let me see which one's which, because I made a note to myself, the one that looks redder, which is this one, was a different one, and this yellow one was the crack out. So the original crack out was a 4, and that matches up with this one. Oops, shoot, I think I just spoiled that one, but the other one got a 5, so you guys probably saw that one already. And then this one, which we have not seen yet, let's check it out and see what it gets. And it got a 4, so it got the exact same grade that it had before. So yeah, cleaning it up did not change the grade, even though it's a much nicer card at that point. So yeah, we've got a 5 and a 4 on those, and I think that the 4 looks nicer than the 5 if you look at centering. And yeah, the 5 looks much nicer than the 4. Or, I mean, the 4 looks much nicer than the 5, sorry. Due to centering. Makes me want to keep the 4, and, well, we'll see. Anyway, so, and 4. I'll just move these down here. And then, I am not very organized today. Let's see what we got here. Here's another Gretzky. This one is card number 235, which I'd guess this one is an 8 due to centering. But other than that, it was a perfect, looked perfect to me. So let's see what it gets. It gets a 7. Here is Ron Francis's rookie. It gets, what did I pre-grade it as? I thought it was an 8. It looks pretty good to me. The centering on the top and bottom looked a little off, but other than that, I mean, looks pretty good. What does it get? It gets an 8. So that's not perfect, but it's decent. Here we go with a Topps Steve Yzerman rookie, 1983. It just looked pretty good, pretty clean to me, and I guessed it as a, or 1984, not 1983. I gave it a 9. We'll see if it gets a 9. Couldn't really find too much wrong with it other than just imperfect centering, and it gets an 8. '69 Topps Pete Rose. I had previously graded this one as a 4 just due to the centering, but still wanted to get it into a holder. But other than that, it was a pretty nice card, and it gets a 5, so that's good. Here's another 1968 LK line. I thought this one was nicer than the one that I already have. I already have a 3 on this card, so I thought I could replace it, and thought this one might get a 5, but just due to centering and stuff. But the corners, I'm guessing they're going to be pretty hard on this one. We'll see. And it gets a 5, so there we go. Upgraded that a little bit. Don Mattingly, 1984 Topps is pre-graded as a 9. The centering is kind of off on the top and bottom, so we'll see what it gets, and it gets an 8. All right, let's see here. Next up is a 1985 Topps Ryan Sandberg. Thought this one could do decent, as I thought most of these would. Thought I could get a 10. It just looked perfect. And I know this is a hard card to get in a 10, but I thought the centering looked pretty good on it, and just thought it was a nice copy of that card. And it gets a 7, so PSA disagrees. Yeah, I'm way off with my grades this time, and I even adjusted them for their newer standards, and it seems like each submission that I send gets harsher and harsher on the grading. I'm not getting too upset about it because I've come to accept it at this point that like every time you send it in, it's going to be that much more difficult to get decent grades. Reggie Jackson rookie. This was kind of probably the biggest card of the submission. I wasn't expecting anything too great with this one, but was hoping to get, something higher than a 2. So let's see what we get. And it gets a 3. So that's higher than a 2. Still a really nice card. No creases or anything. Just nice copy of that card. Oh, here are, I've got 2 of these. Jim Palmer rookies. And those ones I pre-graded as, and I know they made an offer on these, so I forgot what the offer was on both these. I guessed one I guess is a 5 and the other is 4. And the one that, I'm going to cover that, had worse corners, which I think is this one. This one I thought would be a 4, and this one I thought would be a 5. So we'll look at the nicer one first and see what it gets. So this is the one I was expecting to be a 5, and it gets a 5.5. Half grade. No, that's higher than a 5. So we'll stick that in the 5 stack. And then this one is the one I expected to get a 4. And it gets a 5. Okay, so I got a 5 and a 5.5. So that's not too bad. Here we are with my Tommy John rookies, and I sent 2 of these in. One I guess is a 5 and one as a 4, and I don't know the difference between each of these. This one, just looking at it, has left, right centering issues. The top left and right corners are a little bit rounder than the bottoms, but all in all, that's a decent card, and it gets a 4. So that one got a 4. And then this one has, that almost, yeah. This one I'm almost seeing like a stain thing, like up near the top, like right there, there's like a discoloration, like where the T is of stars going into the N. It almost looks like there's some sort of staining thing that I didn't see before. Seeing that now, I will be surprised if it gets more than a 2, and it looks like it's got more of a stain thing down there, so maybe this is a card that somebody spilled some gunk on or something. That being said, I have no clue, but I don't think this card deserves more than like a 2 after seeing the staining on it. And it got a 3. So that's, yeah, it's interesting when you notice things later that, I don't know if I scrutinized that card close enough, but yeah. Next up is another one of these OPGs from the same pile of just like pristine, perfect looking ones, and this one's card number 99. And I guess this one as a, I thought this one got a 9. It just looked perfect. Left, right is, I guess, a little less perfect than, but I mean, it's not far off. It looks really good. I think that's why I thought it was a 9. We'll see what it gets. And it gets a 9. So there we go. My second 9. So that's nice. Keep going. Let's see. Here we go with Alex Delvecchio. He just passed away a few months ago. He was a big TTM signer. This is a, must be on the other sheet. $1971 tops, number 37. That's it. Yeah. I guess this one as a 7. Wow, it seems like it's like not centered in the holder, but looks like it's kind of like on a weird angle in the holder. But I thought this card looked pretty clean and pretty decent. Not sure, that's weird. It's got like a plastic sleeve on it in there that's kind of like wrinkled, and not sure what's going on with this holder. But do they do that with all of them these days? I guess they put sleeves on them, but normally you don't see that. Anyway, I thought it was a 7. It gets an 8. It looks like it's not quite centered in the holder, but decent card. Have to look at that one closer. Oof. Okay, let's see. Almost done. I think this video is going on too long. I thought this Willie Stargell just looked really clean, and I pre-graded it thinking it was decent as a 8. See if he gets an 8. And he gets a 5. Okay, well, I guess they disagreed on that one. Next up is another one of those 72s, Tony Esposito. Again, I thought all of these looked really, really clean. Good centering on them. And yeah, this one, in hindsight, this one does look like the up-down centering is not perfect. But let's see what he gets. Other than centering, it's a perfect card. He gets 5. Okay, they are really harsh on these. Again, these all looked perfect to me, so I'm not going to keep repeating myself. We'll go through the 72s fast. That one got a 9, so Gump Worsley got a 9. Oops. Here's a 1968. Is this PGA or Topps? I think this is Topps because it says watch on the CBC net or CBS network. 1968 Topps Bobby Hull. Okay. I guess this one has a 5, and it was mainly just because of the centering, but otherwise thought it was a pretty nice card. And I mean, these 68s are really tough to get centered. And it gets a 5. So that's right where I thought it would get. Here's another one that I thought I had a chance at a 10 on. Just a really nice copy of 85 Topps Pete Rose, and he gets a 9. Next up is another Bobby Orr. This one is... I thought it would get a 6. Just looked like a clean card. I mean, that corner's not perfect in the bottom right, but other than that, looks like a pretty decent Bobby Orr, and he gets a 7. So that's... Wait, what did I say it was? Anyway, yeah, 7's probably fair for that card. Next up is Phil Esposito, 129. What is... Okay, so I guess this one has an 8, and just thought it looked pretty good. Not much to say. Centerings looks perfect, and it gets a 7. Here is a 1968 Topps Jean Bellevue. Thought this one could get a decent grade other than the centering, which again, these 68s are super difficult to center, but I still thought it had a chance, and I had guessed it as a... Actually, I put it as a 6, so we'll see what he gets, and he gets a 6, so that's not far off. Right on. Another one of those 72s I thought was perfect. Stan Mikita. Just, I mean, these have sharp corners. Everything about them looked perfect, and I thought I could get 10s on some of them, and this one gets an 8. Here's another K-line for the K-line collection, the 63. This one is not centered very well, but otherwise looked pretty good. Yeah, so we'll see if this centering hurt it too much. I thought that it would get a 5 other than the centering, but we'll see. And it gets a 4. Okay. Okay, next up. Wow. PSA, for how much they're charging, I wish they could get the cards like straightened in their holders. Look how far over to the left this Willie Mays is in the holder. Like they're not. Oh, I guess that. Well, I don't know what's going on with the quality, but quality control is not good on these. Anyway, this one I thought was pretty decent. I think they actually made me an offer on this one, so I may have seen this one already. I just forgot what it was. I had pre-graded this as a 4, but thought it looked pretty good. Centering up, down isn't perfect. No creases, just nice card, and it gets a 6. So that one actually got 2 grades higher than I thought. But for some reason, these things are just, look at that. You can like hit it like that, and it goes all the way to the bottom. Hit it like that, and it goes all the way to the top. These holders don't hold the cards in place anymore. They're just like loose. They just throw them in a sleeve and throw them in there. That seems like not. And here's another one that it's just like way over. I don't know what's going on with their holders, but the cards are not sitting like in the center of the holder. They're like moving all around, and that's really terrible. Anyway, sorry. So this was the Dave Winfield rookie from 1974 Topps, and I had pre-graded this as a, thought this could get a 3. Let's see what he gets. And he gets a 4, so that's not bad. But I'm almost more unhappy with the holder quality than the cards themselves, because they're just jiggling around inside sleeves inside these things. They're not affixed anywhere. Here's a 1964 Topps Ernie Banks. Thought this one was decent. This was one that they did make an offer on, and the offer they made on was actually really higher than what sold listings went, and I was considering selling it to them. I didn't in the end. I kept it, but I had pre-graded this as a 4, and just because the corners and centering aren't perfect, but still a nice card, and it gets a 5. Here is 1967 LK line, and I had pre-graded this as a 5. Just thought it looked nice, and it gets a 5. So there we go. That's not bad. 1961 Topps Ron Santo Trophy rookie card. I had guessed this one as a 6, and he gets a 5. This video is going to take it's going to be really long. I still have a bunch left. We'll try to go through them pretty quickly. Bob Gibson, 1961 Topps. I pre-graded it as a 3, mainly because of the corner at the bottom. I think it's probably more of a 2 looking at it now, and it gets a 3. 1963 stars, rookie stars, including Gaylord Perry on it. Although, as you know, Gaylord Perry's rookie was on 61 Topps, or 62 Topps, sorry. But he also had this rookie stars card as well. And I had pre-graded this as a 5. Centering is the main issue on it. I think it's a 5. Here's 61 Topps Brooks Robinson. I thought this one looked pretty clean and nice. Wow, these cards are just trying to get them to be centered in the cases is difficult. I pre-graded this one as a 7, and it gets a 4. Stan Musial. Guess this one as a 6, even though I think it looks a lot nicer than the Brooks Robinson. But I'm guessing that with how they're grading it, we'll probably get a 4, and it gets a 5. Here's one that did not get holdered before, min size, and this time it did. Still thought it looked perfect, and it gets an 8. 1984 Donruss Nolan Ryan. I thought this one had a chance at a 10. It just looked perfect. There's nothing wrong that I could find with this card in any way. And it gets a 9. So very difficult to get any Nolan Ryans in a 10. And here's one that they did make an offer on, which was, I felt was kind of a low ball offer, but it was a much higher grade than I was anticipating on this one, although I can't remember what the grade was. I had guessed it as a 7. Maybe is that what I guessed it, or is that what they gave me? I can't remember what they gave me, but it just looked really perfect. Centering was the only issue with it, and it gets an 8. So a 1968 Topps, any of these cards, just due to the centering, are really hard to get in high grades. So an 8 on that card is really nice, and hence why they wanted it. But their offer was way lower than comps. But just a cool card. That's probably the best one so far out of the submission. Here's the one that got min size before. It's a Fran Tarkenton. They had actually made me an offer on this one too. Don't remember what he got, but pre-graded it as I thought I could get a 7, just due to just a nice card, and it gets a 4.5. So not the greatest. Here's another one of those Gretzky's. Again, these all were like super mint. I thought they were all like 9s or 10s or something. We'll see what they get. That one got a 6. Try to go through these fast. Again, just thought they looked perfect, and it gets a 7. Another one of those perfect 1972s. Just looked really good, and it gets a 7. 1962 Nellie Fox. I thought this one was good enough for a 7. We'll see how it did. And it got a 6. And Gil Hodges. Thought this one was nice enough for an 8. It just corners, everything looked really good on it. Up and down centering is not perfect, but just a nice card, and it gets a 7. Here's that Hank Aaron that I had previously got a min size on, and it got holdered this time, and it gets, I thought it wouldn't get more than like a 1 or a 2, so I just kind of wanted it in a holder, and it gets a 2. That's fine. Here's a 1961 Topps Duke Snider. Thought this one looked pretty nice. I guessed it would possibly get a 6, and it gets a 5. And my grade estimations, I think, are consistent with 2024 grading, and I think in 2025 it's a much different picture of what they're grading and how they're grading. Again, I thought these were perfect, and that one got an 8. Another one of those that I thought was absolutely perfect in every way, and it gets an 8. Another one of these, thought these ones looked absolutely perfect, and it gets an 8. Another one, that one got a 6. Well, okay. 75 Topps. Trying to just get all the Hall of Famers in slabs for these. This one, left right, is not perfect, so I would say that one, I guessed it as a 7, and it gets a 5. Norm Ullman, thought this one looked really good, as all of them, and it got a 9. Okay, so we got another 9. No 10s yet. I mean, it's vintage, so you're not getting 10s is not likely, but I thought with those 72s I could get at least 1 or 2. This one I thought was perfect. It's an O-Pee-Chee Gump Worsley. It does have the fuzzy edges, but that's how they caught them back then. and I was hoping that they wouldn't grade it too harshly. We'll see if they agreed, and it gets a 5. So, yeah. This one is Marcel Pronovost, 1961 Parkhurst. I guess this one has I was hoping for a 4, but we'll see. Oh, there we go. We got a 4 on that one. That's decent. Okay. Alex Del Vecchio from the same set. And that one I thought would get, this one wasn't quite as nice, but I thought I would get a better, or a 3 on that one. So we'll see. 2. Okay. Ed Jacquemin, again, thought these were all perfect. They don't agree. And he gets an 8. Frank Mahavlik, 8.5. Ken Dryden, 7. Here is a Chris Chelios rookie. They're really always harsh on these O-Pee-Chees, so I don't even know what to expect. At this point, I'm just looking for. Here's another 1979 Gordie Howe. Thought it looked nice. We'll see. And it gets a 7. Trying to wrap this up as quickly as possible as this video is getting long. Here's a 1980 Wayne Gretzky. Again, I thought this one looked really nice, just like the other ones. We'll see. And he gets an 8. Oops. Sorry about that. And thought this one had a chance at a 10. Pete Rose. Didn't see any issues with it. And it gets a 9. And then here are 2, and I do know the grades on these Al McInnes's because they made offers on them. Al McInnes, O-Pee-Chee rookies. I thought these were both, I thought they could both get 10s. And we got a 9 on that one. The other one also got a 9 as well. They did offer me like $100, I think, for each of these, which I think was low. I could be wrong on but I think that was about what they offered. But yeah, I was hoping to get a 10, and I'm wondering, like, it seems like there's a conflict of interest with PSA with offering things. Like, they could offer, money on this, I could send it in, and they could pop them and put them into a 10 holder. Not saying they do that, but there's always, because they're the same people grading as buying them and selling them, it creates kind of that, people always wonder whether or not it happens or not. There's always that concern. But anyway, we got 2 of those. Oh, and I got one more to go. Sorry about that. And it is a 1984 Wayne Gretzky, which I thought was good enough for a 9. I don't know. We'll see. And it gets an 8. So there we go. That's it. No 10s, but we did get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 9s. Which, at the end of the day, I'm not sure that I fully agree with this grader or with the grading on this, but that's how it goes sometimes. So they're not always perfect, and it seems like lately they've been a lot more harsher on a lot of cards and just not getting away with the kind of grades that we were getting back a couple of years ago or even last year. They're harsh. Even if a card looks perfect, they're gonna find something wrong, and it's with it for whatever reasons. But anyway, there's a couple cool cards in there. But anyway, that's the submission for my latest one. Hopefully you guys saw something you liked. If you did, then comment below. But anyway, I guess I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.